The jungle of Thalara was alive with strange sounds, buzzing insects, glowing birds, and trees taller than houses. The air was thick, warm, and smelled like wet metal. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead and adjusted the straps of his backpack. He had come here as part of a human exploration team. But now he was alone. His team had split up after the storm. Their communication devices stopped working. Ethan had wandered off, looking for shelter or a signal. That's when he saw her, an alien girl, standing near a broken stone gate, her eyes glowing gold under the twin moons. Her name was Rylexa. She had sharp black horns that curved back over her silver hair, and her skin was a soft shade of violet. Ethan had raised his hands when he first saw her, unsure if she was friend or foe. But she had only laughed. Lost, human. She said in perfect trade tongue, "You're not supposed to be here." "I figured that out already," Ethan replied with a weak smile. She didn't attack. Instead, she looked amused, curious. She told him the gate behind her led to a sacred ruin, once a temple for her ancestors, now forgotten and buried in jungle. "You want to see something funny?" she asked, pointing inside the temple. Ethan followed her through the crumbled hall. Walls covered in old carvings and glowing moss. At the center stood a suit of ancient armor, tall, heavy, and shaped like it was built for a warrior twice Ethan's size. Its metal looked like melted stars, black with streaks of glowing blue veins. "That's the armor of Varex, the first warlord," Rylexa said, smirking. "No one has ever made it move, not even our priests. It's dead metal. Just a relic." Ethan walked closer, eyes wide. "It's beautiful. Looks almost ... alive." "Go on," she teased. "Try it, I dare you," he chuckled nervously. "What, put it on?" "Yeah," she said with a grin. "Make history, human." Ethan hesitated. Something about the armor felt electric, like it was watching him. But he shrugged off the feeling. "All right, it's just the glove then." He touched the gauntlet. It latched onto his hand, like it had been waiting centuries just for him. Rylex's grin vanished. A loud hum echoed through the temple. The carvings on the walls lit up, shining symbols in the air. The ground shook lightly. Dust fell from the ceiling. The full armor pulsed blue, veins glowing brighter, and the chest plate unlocked with a deep metallic click. Ethan's eyes went wide. "What the hell?" "The armor. It's responding," Rylexa whispered. "You're stepping back." The gauntlet climbed up Ethan's arm slowly, piece by piece, forming around his skin without pain. It wasn't just metal, it moved like it was alive. "This shouldn't be happening," Rylexa shouted. Suddenly the temple doors slammed shut. A glowing circle formed around them, both on the floor. A deep voice echoed through the chamber, not in trade tongue, not in any known language, but Ethan somehow understood it in his mind. "The air has touched the steel. The trial begins." Before Ethan could speak, his vision went white. He stood in a place of stars. Floating lights danced around him. A giant figure stepped out of the shadows, wearing the same armor but full and glowing like a sun. "Who dares wear the bloodsteel?" The figure boomed. Ethan stood tall, confused but defiant. "I didn't mean Tashi dared me to. You are not of our kind. You are not worthy." "Maybe not," Ethan said, heart racing, "but I didn't come here for power. I came to survive." The figure moved like a storm, rushing at Ethan with a glowing blade. Ethan ducked, rolled, and ran. He didn't have a weapon, but something inside the armor sparked. A small shield appeared on his arm. He used it to block the next strike. He felt pain, but not fear. And in that moment, something inside the spirit paused. "You resist like one of our own. You fight not for conquest, but for meaning." Spirit faded. Ethan opened his eyes back in the temple, gasping. The armor stopped moving, but it stayed on his body, now dim, as if asleep again. Rylexa stood there, speechless. Her eyes trembled. "You ... passed," she whispered. "I passed what?" She dropped to one knee, not joking anymore. "The armor's judgment. Only a soul worthy of the stars could awaken it." "That's what the prophecy said." Ethan looked At the gauntlet still on his hand? What prophecy? Relaxa looked up slowly. The one that says, "A stranger will awaken the steel, and the world will change forever." Asterisk, the stars were still spinning in Ethan's eyes when he stood up. Breathing was heavy. The strange armor still hugged his body like a second skin. It was no longer glowing, but it felt alive. Every step he took, the armor moved with him, smooth, like it was made just for him. Rylexa stayed silent. But this, a human awakening, the sacred armor of her ancestors, was beyond reason. Playful grin from earlier had turned into a troubled frown. Ethan turned to her. "What the hell was that?" "You were judged," she said quietly, "by the spirits of the first warlords, and you didn't die. That means you passed." "Passed what exactly?" asked voice sharp. Relixa swallowed hard. The temple's judgment. It was supposed to test only pure-blooded descendants. "Avarix, you're human. That should have killed you." Ethan looked around. The floor was still pulsing faintly. The carvings on the walls, once faded and cracked, were now alive with light, as if the entire temple had just woken up after 1,000-year sleep. Then, something changed. A rumble echoed beneath their feet. Suddenly, the stone beneath them split apart, revealing a spiral staircase going down into darkness. A cold wind rushed up, carrying a deep hum, most like breathing. Relixa stepped back. "This wasn't here before. You think it's safe?" She laughed bitterly. "With you wearing that thing? Nothing is safe anymore." Still, they both descended, step by careful step. Deeper into the ancient heart of the temple, the chamber below was massive, circular and pitch black until Ethan stepped inside. The moment his armored foot touched the center of the floor, the room lit up with ghostly blue fire. Dozens of spectral figures appeared, floating in a circle around them. Each one wore a version of the same armor, older, heavier, more battle-worn. These were not statues or illusions. These were the memories of ancient warlords. One spirit stepped forward. He was taller than the others, his face hidden behind a battle-scarred helmet. His voice echoed like thunder. "Name yourself, outsider." Ethan took a breath. "My name is Ethan Cross. I'm just a guy trying to get home." The spirit raised his hand. "You awakened the armor. You know what that means?" "No," Ethan admitted. "Then listen." The flames dimmed. The walls of the chamber showed visions, planets burning, warriors clashing, starships falling from the sky. We were the guardians of the galaxy's balance. Our armor chose leaders, not soldiers. It chose those who could guide with strength and compassion. But we fell, betrayed. The armor was lost. Until now. The spirit stepped closer. "You were chosen. But to keep the armor, you must prove your spirit is stronger than your flesh." Ethan's chest tightened. "Another test?" The spirit nodded. "Enter the trial of the soul. If you fail, the armor will consume you." Without warning, the chamber vanished. Ethan was suddenly back in his childhood home on Earth. His mother stood in the kitchen. The smell of pancakes filled the air. His younger sister laughed as their dog chased her around the couch, but something was off. His mother turned. Her eyes were black. Her voice was not hers. "Will you abandon comfort to carry the pain of others?" The scene melted away. Ethan was on a battlefield, alien soldiers dead around him. A girl cried nearby, holding her mother's broken body. "Will you kill to protect those who hate you?" Then he stood alone, floating in space, stars stretched forever. "Will you stand when no one else does?" Ethan dropped to one knee. The questions cut deep. He didn't know if he could live up to any of this. He was no warlord, just a man trying to survive. But he clenched his fist and whispered, "I will try. Even if I'm afraid. Even if I fail." Silence, then ... light. Ethan opened his eyes back in the temple chamber. The spirits were gone. Only one figure remained, the tall warlord from before. This time, his face was visible. He looked human. "You are more like me than you know," the spirit said softly. "The armor has accepted you, but others will not." The ghost vanished. The chamber shook. The walls began to collapse. Ethan grabbed Rylex's arm.
Owie, we need to run.
They raced up the stairs as dust and stone rained down. The entire temple was breaking apart as if its only purpose had been completed to pass on the armor. Outside, the sky had turned red. Rylexa looked at him, eyes wide. "You've changed everything." Ethan didn't answer. He just stared at his armored hand. Still glowing faintly, and he realized something terrifying the armor was no longer waiting for. A war. It was preparing for one. Asterisk. The sky above the jungle burned orange as Ethan and Rylexa ran through the trees, branches whipping past them. Behind them, the ancient temple groaned and crumbled into itself, swallowed by roots, stone, and time. What had once stood silent for centuries was now nothing but smoke and ruin. But the armor still clung to Ethan. Its weight was real, heavy, alive. The chest plate shimmered faintly, and the gauntlet pulsed with a strange rhythm like a second heartbeat, one that didn't belong to him. Ethan stumbled. "How much farther?" Rylexa looked back, panting. "Just past those hills. My village. They need to see this." "I don't think they're going to throw me a party," she didn't answer. By the time they reached her village carved into the cliffsides and grown from glowing crystal trees, the sky had turned dark. Luminescent lights hung from every branch, and dozens of alien eyes watched them from shadowed windows. Rylexa stepped forward and raised her hands. "Open the gate. He's with me." Guards stepped out from behind the trees. Their weapons pointed at Ethan. Some looked confused. Others looked afraid. Then one old alien elder stepped forward. His long white tendrils swayed as he looked at the armor on Ethan's chest. The elder dropped his staff, hit the ground with a thud. "Impossible," the elder whispered. "The bloodsteel walks again." Gasps spread through the crowd. Mothers pulled children back. Warriors stood stiff, gripping their spears tightly. A few fell to one knee, trembling. Others shouted warnings, accusing Ethan of blasphemy. One guard spat at the ground. "Where's the armor of the ancients? A human wearing our legacy? This is cursed." Rylexa stepped between them. He was judged. He passed the temple's trial. Another warrior shouted back. "Then that means the war is coming." Ethan took a step forward, raising his hands. "I didn't ask for this. Didn't even know what the armor was." That didn't help. More weapons were drawn. Suddenly, the armor responded on its own panels. Along Ethan's shoulders lit up, and a small energy shield flickered in front of him. It wasn't an attack. It was defense. "Stand down," shouted. "You fools, he's not the threat, he's the warning." The armor chose him because danger is coming, not because he brings it. The elder raised his hand. Silence fell. He looked into Ethan's eyes. "What did you see in the trial?" Ethan hesitated. "I saw war, death, choices I didn't want to make. A spirit asked me if I'd still stand even if the world hated me. And what did you say?" Ethan looked around at the angry faces. "It's the fear, the distrust," I said. "I'd try." The elder closed his eyes. "Then we may still have hope." Later that night, Rylexa sat beside Ethan near the glowing fire pit at the center of the village. The crowd had thinned. Most people stayed inside, too afraid to be near the human with the living armor. Ethan stared at the flames. "I didn't mean for any of this." "I know," she said softly. "But the armor doesn't care about meaning. It only chooses when. It must." He looked at her. "And what does that mean?" Rylexa hesitated. "There's a prophecy. Not one we say aloud. Only the elders know it." She leaned in and whispered, "When the sky burns red and the blood steel awakens, the outsider shall rise. Not of our kin, but of our fire. He shall wear the forgotten power, and the stars will tremble at his step." Ethan frowned. "Sounds like the start of a galactic war." "It is," she said. Just then, a sharp cry echoed from the lookout post. Above, a young alien boy shouted down, voice full of panic. "Ships in the sky, black and silent." Everyone froze. Rylexa jumped to her feet. It's too soon. They shouldn't be here yet. Who? Ethan asked. She turned to him, eyes full of dread. The ones who killed the last warlord? They followed the armor's signal, and now they know it lives again. Ethan stood slowly. The armor tightened around his chest, sensing the threat. He looked toward the sky where dark shapes floated. Just above the clouds and natural, like shadows with wings, the village bells began to ring, and the people finally realized the prophecy had begun. And the only one who could stop it was the outsider they feared the most. The silence before the first blast was worse than the noise that followed. From the dark skies above Thalara, the enemy ships released their first strike, a beam of pure red light that sliced through the forest, turning trees into ash. The ground shook. Animals screamed. Panic swept through Rylex's village as the people ran for cover. Children crying and guards shouting. Ethan stood on the high cliff's edge, the alien armor glowing with fierce blue lines across his body. He watched as 3 more ships hovered above like hunters over helpless prey. He wasn't just being watched, now he was being hunted. Rylexa ran to him, panting. They're not here for the village, Ethan. They're here for you. Because of the armor, he said, gripping his fists. No, she said, eyes serious. Because of what the armor makes you. Suddenly a loud voice echoed through the village from speakers hidden on the enemy ships above. To the people of Thalara, we seek the one who wears the ancient bloodsteel. Surrender the human, and we shall leave your village untouched. Protect him, and burn with him. Gasps rippled through the village. The people looked toward Ethan. Whispers started. Fingers pointed. He brought this, someone growled. He's cursed, another spat. But Ethan didn't move. He just stared at the ship's size, steady, breathing slow. I won't run, he said. I'll fight them. You don't understand, Rylexa said, grabbing his arm. These aren't raiders. They're collectors. They track ancient tech across the galaxy, kill whoever holds it, and keep the power for themselves. How do I stop them? He asked. She looked toward the mountain caves beyond the village. There's only one place they can't track the armors, Signalin, old resistance hideout. My mother used to take me there. Ethan nodded. Then, let's go. But escape wouldn't be easy. By dawn, the bounty was everywhere. Holograms of Ethan's face and the armor's glow were projected across alien cities and backwater colonies alike, a reward beyond imagination. Thousands of bounty hunters across. The stars now knew a human had awakened to God's armor, and all of them wanted him dead or captured, as Ethan and Rylexa moved through the winding cliff paths toward the old hideout. The jungle around them grew quiet. Too quiet then. Snapped a net shot up from the ground, catching Ethan by the legs, but the armor reacted instantly, shredding the ropes with a flash of light. Ambush, Rylexa shouted. Out of the trees came for bounty hunters, not villagers, not locals. Mercenaries with glowing red visors and armor made from scavenged war tech. Step away from the girl, one hissed, raising his shock blade. We only want the human. Ethan stepped forward. I'm right here. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't need one. The armor pulsed. The gauntlet expanded, transforming into a shield, and a light burst from the chest plate. Tan suddenly he could feel their attacks coming before they moved. Temerks charged. Ethan dropped low, rolled between them, and struck the ground with his fist. A shockwave erupted, knocking them back like dolls. The third tried to shoot, but the armor anticipated it, forming a barrier that deflected the bolt within seconds. It was over. 3 hunters unconscious. One fled, screaming into his cums. The human's not normal. He's a damn weapon. I saw. Ethan turned to Rylexa, his breath fast. I didn't even think. The armor just acted. God. She stared at him in awe. It's not just armor. It's starting to trust you. They finally reached the resistance hideout, an old bunker sealed beneath the mountain's roots. Rylexa placed her hand on a stone panel, and it scanned her palm, then opened with a loud hiss. Inside were dim lights, dust-covered consoles, and walls lined with relics from a forgotten war. Ethan sat on an old bench, his shoulders heavy. How long do I have before more bounty hunters come? Raylexa was quiet. Then she said, "They'll come in waves. Some will want your head, others will want the armor, but eventually, someone worse will arrive." "Worse than collectors?" She looked him in the eye, the ebon crowned. "The ones who killed the last true warlord. They don't just want the armor. They want to rewrite who's allowed to wear it." Ethan frowned. "And they don't like humans." "No," she said. "To them, you're a mistake that shouldn't exist." He stood, the armor once again shimmering across his chest. "Then we make them remember why humans are feared." Rylex's voice dropped to a whisper. "Just don't lose yourself in the armor. It has power. Yes, but it also has a will. It remembers the hands of warlords before you. Some were noble, some were monsters." Ethan looked at his reflection in the metallic walled, and for the first time he didn't recognize his own eyes. Asterisk. Deep beneath the mountain, in a forgotten corner of Thalara, the bunker's air was cold and stale. The walls were covered with faded markings, old tech, dusty relics that hadn't been touched in decades. Ethan sat in silence while Raylexa activated an old console, her fingers dancing over glowing glyphs. The light from his armor cast long shadows across the chamber. But it wasn't the shadows that made his skin crawl. It was the faint humming from the armor itself. It had started again, like it was calling to something. "Is this place safe?" Ethan asked, watching the hallway behind them. "For now," Raylexa replied, "no signal can escape these walls, not even the armor's." She hesitated, then turned to face him. "But we didn't come here just to hide." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Then why?" She took a deep breath and stepped toward a sealed door at the far end of the bunker. "Because underneath this place lies something older than the armor, something your armor wants back." With a heavy grind, the vault door opened. Behind it was a narrow stairway leading into the dark. As they descended, the air grew colder, and the light from Ethan's armor became the only thing guiding them. At the bottom was a chamber round and silent. In its center was a pedestal with a floating shard, sharp and glowing faintly blue, like it had a heartbeat of its own. Ethan stepped forward. The armor pulsed violently, clutched his chest. "It's reacting," he said through gritted teeth. Raylexa nodded that shard. "It's the core of the soul blade, the second half of the warlord's power. Why is it down here? Because the last warlord feared what it could do if it ever bonded with the wrong hands. The armor was made to protect, but the blade... ... She looked at him seriously. ... was made to judge." Ethan walked closer, drawn by a force he couldn't explain. The shard floated just above the pedestal, humming louder now, then a voice clear. An ancient echoed in the chamber. "To wield the blade is to carry the burden of death. It shall not serve the proud, the greedy, or the lost. Only the broken who rise again." Ethan reached out. As his fingers brushed the shard, pain exploded through his body. His knees hit the floor. Visions flooded his mind, worlds burning, cries of people he had never met, warlords screaming in rage, fire swallowing hope. But then, a single memory, a child's voice, his sister. Laughing, back on Earth, Ethan clenched his teeth and roared. "I'm still here," the shard answered. It flared with blue light and shot into the armor's chestplate. The entire suit glowed. Symbols flowed across Ethan's arms. The metal shifted, forming a thin, elegant blade from his right gauntlet. Not just any blade. The soul blade. Raylexa stepped back in awe. "You did it. You completed the armor." Stood slowly. The blade felt weightless, but heavy with purpose. "I didn't just unlock it," he said, "it chose me." Suddenly, alarms blared in the bunker above. Ethan and Raylexa raced back up the stairs. The security screen flickered, showing a squad of black-armored soldiers breaking into the outer level. The Ebon Crown had found them. Ethan looked at Raylexa. "I thought the vault was hidden." "It was," she said, "unless someone betrayed us." The ground shook with explosions. Voices shouted above. Raylexa grabbed his arm. "Can't fight all of them. The exit tunnels come on." But Ethan didn't move. The armor was burning with light now. The soul blade hummed in his hand. "They won't stop, Rilixa," he said, calmly. "If I run, they'll chase us forever. If I fight, maybe they'll learn fear." She stared at him, searching his face. "You're not the same man who fell into that temple." Ethan gave a sad smile. "No, I'm not." Then he turned and walked toward the door in the upper chamber. The ebon-crowned soldiers surrounded the entrance, weapons drawn. As their leader, a tall alien in sleek obsidian armor, stepped forward. "So ... the human dares to wear our legacy." Stepped through the smoke. The light from his armor lit the room like a second sun. The soul blade extended from his arm, glowing like fire. "I don't want your legacy," Ethan said. "I came here with nothing. Now I have your fear." Leader laughed. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, and alone." Ethan raised the blade. "Then they should have brought more." The battle was short, but it shook the mountain. The soul blade moved like it had its own mind, guided by Ethan's will. Each strike disarmed, disabled, defended. He didn't kill. He didn't need to. He sent a message. One the galaxy would never forget. After the last soldier fell unconscious, Ethan collapsed beside Rilixa near the bunker's exit. His armor flickered softly, drained, but stable. She handed him a canteen. "You're bleeding. Just tired," he said, drinking. "Armor's strong, but it's not infinite. You made your stand," she said. "They'll think twice before coming again." Ethan nodded. "But they'll come back," he said. "And next time, it won't just be bounty hunters. It'll be war." She looked at him, eyes fierce. "Then let's be ready." Asterisk, far above Thalera's skies, the stars no longer blinked softly. Instead, dunned, churned, twisting and pulsing like something alive. Strange lights moved unnaturally, forming a spiral. People across the planet stared upward in fear. Some prayed. Others ran, but Rilixa had seen it before in stories told by hushed voices. "Forbidden to be written, the Skyfire," she whispered. "The last time it appeared, 1,000 worlds fell." Ethan stood beside her, his armor still cracked from battle, the soul blade quiet at his side. He looked up, not at the lights, but beyond them. Something was watching, not just from orbit. From beyond space itself, back in the mountain bunker, ancient systems dead for centuries suddenly flickered to life. Screens showed encrypted warnings. Symbols and forgotten languages scrolled across the monitors. One line blinked repeatedly. "He has passed the Bloodsteel trial, initiating Skyfire protocol." Rylix's voice trembled. "Ethan, this isn't just a signal anymore. You've triggered something older than our history." "I didn't do anything," Ethan said. "It just happened when I took the blade." "Exactly," she said. "Now the original makers of the armor know you're alive." Ethan turned. "Mean the ancients?" She shook her head. "No worse. The ones who tested the ancients." Before they could speak again, the roof above them trembled. A beam of light shot down from the Skyfire spiral, piercing the bunker and lifting Ethan into the air. Rilixa screamed, reaching for him, but her hands passed through the light, and just like that, he vanished. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was floating in a space that wasn't space. There were no stars, no sound, just white light. Then the voice came. "You carry what is not yours." Ethan spun, looking for the source. "Show yourself. You wear the armor. You wield the blade. But do you understand the cost?" A figure stepped forward. It wore the armor too, but older, cracked, marked with thousands of battle scars. Its face looked like Ethan's, but older, wiser, wounded. "I am the echo of the first wielder, and this is the trial of the Skyfire." The world shifted. Now, Ethan stood in the middle of a battlefield alone. The sky was purple, filled with falling ships and screams. Bodies lay all around, alien, human, hybrid. He walked forward. He saw Rilixa, on her knees bleeding. She looked up. "You could have stopped this?" Ethan stepped back. "No." "Isn't real?" the voice returned. "This is what happens when the blade becomes your will, not the people's. Ethan turned to find a shadow version of himself fully armored, eyes glowing like fire. The soul blade in his hands wasn't blue. It was red. You wanted power, the shadow said. You wanted respect. You wanted revenge. I never asked for any of this, Ethan shouted. The shadow raised the blade. But you accepted it. Then it attacked. The battle was brutal. The shadow knew every move Ethan made. It struck harder, faster, crueler. Ethan's blade blocked the attacks, but each hit drained him more. He dropped to his knees. His armor cracked. His breath shook. The voice echoed once more. The trial is not about strength. It is about truth. Ethan looked up at his shadow self and he let go of his blade. I don't need to win, he said. I need to remember why I fight. The soul blade turned blue again. It glowed bright, and the shadow shattered. Into stars, the white world faded. Ethan woke up back in the bunker. Rylexa was kneeling beside him, tears in her eyes. You were gone for hours. Thought I lost you. Ethan sat up, slowly. Wasn't just a test of battle. It was a test of who I could become. And who did you see? She asked. He looked down at the armor. Someone I don't want to be. Just then, a tremor shook the mountain again, but this time, it wasn't an attack. A giant holographic symbol burned into the sky above the village, visible from miles away. It was a signal from the ancients. They had accepted Ethan as a true wielder. But that acceptance came with a terrible cost. Rylex's voice trembled. The ancients don't give power freely. Now every empire will know where you are. The collectors, the ebon crown, even the galactic courts. They'll either want to own you or destroy you. Ethan stood slowly, his armor fully restored, now brighter than ever. Let them come, he said. If they fear what I've become, maybe that means I'm ready. She stepped beside him, her hand brushing his arm. We're not running anymore, are we? He shook his head. We're rising. The sky above Thalara was no longer just strange, it was wounded. Cracks of light ran across the upper atmosphere like lightning frozen in place. The clouds spun in unnatural spirals. Entire ecosystems shifted as if the planet itself was holding. Its breath at the center of it all stood Ethan Human, outsider, now cloaked in the full armor of the ancients. The soul blade resting on his back, pulsing like a living flame. He was no longer running. He was no longer hiding, and the galaxy knew it. Across distant systems, news spread like wildfire. Human has claimed the bloodsteel. The Skyfire has returned. The trial was passed. Some called it a miracle. Others a mistake. But one thing was clear. A new warlord had risen and he wasn't one of them. Back on Thalara. And the village that once feared Ethan now stood in stunned silence as he approached. He moved differently, now calm, but powerful. The children didn't hide. Anymore, the warriors stepped aside. The elders bowed not out of fear, but out of recognition. Ethan didn't speak for a long time. Then he finally said, I never came here to lead. I only wanted to survive. He looked toward the horizon where dark shapes floated in the sky as warships. Gathering, but now. Survival means standing between this world and those who want to break it. In the days that followed, something incredible happened. Other villages began sending messages. Tribes that hadn't spoken in generations began to unite. Even alien species that once distrusted humans entirely now arrived with weapons, supplies, and old battle scrolls. They didn't follow Ethan because of his armor. They followed him because he had chosen not to conquer, but to protect. Rylexa stood by his side through it all. Where once she had mocked him, now she matched his step, his fire, and his burden. You've become what they feared, she told him one night. Not a monster, but a symbol. He gave a tired smile. Symbols don't bleed, I do. They'll bleed with you. When the first real fleet came, a combined force of the Ebon Crown, rogue mercenary legions, and sky hunters from the Black Sun Stellara didn't tremble. It prepared. Ethan stood atop the high cliffs, watching the enemy descend. His armor opened small wings along his back. The The soul blade shimmered brighter than ever, now longer. Sharp responding to his will with perfect understanding. He wasn't just wearing the armor anymore, he was one with it. The battle that followed became legend. Ethan dropped into enemy lines like a meteor, his blade singing through the air. The armor shifted and morphed, adapting mid-fight. Plasma rounds were absorbed into his shield, energy blasts redirected, but Ethan didn't fight alone. Alexa led her people beside him, dual-wielding energy staffs, her voice commanding the skies. Villagers who once feared Ethan now fought like warriors of old, bowered by his courage, unshaken by the enemy's numbers. And when the enemy leader, a warlord of the Ebon Crown, challenged Ethan directly, he stepped forward without hesitation. The duel lasted minutes. The outcome was never in doubt. When the final blow fell and the enemy forces retreated, leaving behind silence and smoke, Ethan stood in the battlefield, center, his blade buried in the earth, his armor cracked, but still glowing around him. The people began to chant, not in fear, not in duty, but in faith. Bloodsteel, bloodsteel. He turned to Alexa, who nodded with pride and tears in her eyes. "You didn't just win, Ethan," she said. "You became the warlord the stars forgot we needed." The following weeks, Thalara changed. Walls came down. Bridges were built. Ethan helped restore ruined places with his own hands, wearing gloves instead of gauntlets. When ambassadors from distant systems arrived, they didn't come to bargain, they came to learn. And when asked what title he would take, Ethan simply said, "Call me what you will. I'm just the human who stayed when it mattered." But far beyond even the furthest reaches of Thalara's system, something else awakened. In a place without stars, a giant structure blinked to life. Machines older than time turned slowly. A single word echoed in forgotten tongues. "One." Confirmed. And a figure taller than any known species, cloaked in shadows, opened its eyes. So, the last trial has begun. Back on Thalara, Alexa watched Ethan laugh with children by the riverside. The soul blade resting beside him, she knew peace had come, but she also knew it would never last.